In January 2017, a family's night-in turned deadly when a house in Kitsap County, Washington, went up in flames. Inside were 3 bodies, all shot to death before the house was set on fire.
Oh, my whole family shot me too.
What's the address?
Now.
What's the address?
13417 Tenino Drive West.
13417.
13417 Tenino Drive West. Come now.
What's the tonight? You said tonight. You said Tenino Drive West.
13417 Tenino Drive West.
Okay.
Edmonton, Washington.
Okay. Listen.
I'm dying. I'm shot right now. My family's dead.
Then 2 days later, another member of the Kuraga family was found burned and shot, left in his truck deep in the woods. This wasn't random. Someone wanted this family gone. But who and what were they trying to hide? The Kuraga family seemed like any other tight-knit, blended household building, a life together in Kitsap County, Washington. At the center was 43-year-old Johnny Kuraga, known by many in town for his sharp business sense and generous spirit. His wife, 37-year-old Crystal Lynn Kuraga, brought warmth and joy to everything she touched. Together, they had created a stable home and a growing business. Johnny and Crystal had married in 2009, both bringing a son from previous relationships into their new family. 16-year-old Jonathan Felipe Higgins and 16-year-old Hunter Evan Shop were the kind of teenagers who filled the house with laughter, energy, and the occasional teenage chaos. But by all accounts, they were close, tight like brothers, and saw Johnny and Crystal as the glue that held them all together. Outside the home, the Kuragas were thriving. Crystal ran a popular coffee stand called Crystal's Java Hut, while she and Johnny co-owned Juanito's Taco Shop, a beloved Mexican restaurant in nearby Bremerton. Their names carried weight in the local business community, and they weren't just successful, they were also visible. Smiling faces behind counters, regulars at school events, a family that looked from the outside like they were doing everything right. But just beneath that picture-perfect surface, something was brewing, something that no one, not their customers, not their neighbors, not even their closest friends, saw coming. It started out like any other Friday night. Crystal Kuraga had friends over at the house, the kind of casual gathering that seemed harmless, ordinary even. Inside the house there was conversation, laughter, the usual energy of people unwinding at the end of a long day. Meanwhile, Johnny Kuraga was at home too, but his night took a turn. He received a phone call, one that seemed urgent, and told his family he needed to step out briefly to meet someone. He promised he'd be right back, and he was, sort of. Not long after leaving, Johnny returned to the house, but something was off. He didn't come inside. Instead, he stayed in the garage. One of the guests, sensing that something wasn't right, went to check on him. What they heard next sent a jolt of unease through the air. 3 men talking, loudly. It seemed like quite a heated argument. That conversation, overheard in the dark of the garage, would be the last clue anyone had before the night turned deadly. As chaos began to unfold, a desperate call broke through the quiet in Bremerton's emergency dispatch center. On the other end of the line was 16-year-old Hunter Shop, terrified, begging for help. He told the dispatcher that he and his family had been shot and pleaded for them to hurry. But before he could say anything more, the line suddenly went dead.
Who did it?
Someone came in. There's someone here with a gun. I don't know if you need to come now.
How many people?
I don't know, bro. Just fucking come, yo.
Where are you shot?
Fucking dead. Come, man.
Where are you shot?
I'm fucking shot, bro. I don't know where I'm.
What happened next was unspeakable. In a final act of cold, calculated cruelty, Hunter was smothered with a pillow and then executed with a gunshot to the head. When first responders arrived, they were met with a nightmare. Flames engulfed the Kuraga home, crackling through what was once a place of warmth and life. Inside, they found the bodies of Cristal, Hunter, and Jonathan. 3 lives wiped out in a matter of moments. It was deliberate, it was brutal, and it was only one part of the story. 2 days later, the final horror was discovered in a remote part of Mason County, deep within a quiet tree farm near Belfair. There, inside a scorched Ford F-150 pickup, lay the burned and broken body of Johnny Kuraga. He had been shot, his truck torched, and his remains left to be inhaled by the woods. A caretaker who worked on the property told investigators something strange. Johnny had actually been seen on the land earlier that same day. But he hadn't had his truck with him then. That detail, like so many others, raised more questions than answers. Who were the 3 men in the garage? Why did Johnny return but never enter the house? And what did someone want badly enough to wipe out an entire family? As investigators sifted through the wreckage of the Kuraga home, the deeper, darker picture of what had happened that night began to take shape. According to the Kitsap County Fire Marshal's office, this fire wasn't just meant to destroy evidence, it was meant to send a message. Fire logs, likely soaked in some kind of accelerant, had been deliberately placed on the beds at opposite ends of the house, right where Cristal, Hunter, and Jonathan had died. It wasn't random. It was a well-planned, well-executed crime. Then, as if that wasn't enough, large rocks were hurled through the windows, shattering glass, letting in oxygen, and feeding the flames with ruthless precision. Whoever did this didn't just want them dead. They wanted to erase the family's entire existence. But the fire, destructive as it was, didn't hide everything. As detectives moved from one corner of the house to another, through the burned-out shell of the once warm home, they stumbled upon something shocking. Inside the master bedroom, tucked away in a strongbox, was more than $50,000 in cash, and beside it, a separate money bag containing another $7,000. The killers hadn't taken a single penny, not one. Which meant robbery wasn't the motive. And if money wasn't what they came for, then what was the reason for annihilating a whole family? And this is when Johnny Kuraga's double life surfaced. Until this point, the murders seemed almost senseless, cold, calculated, and cruel. But as investigators dug deeper, a darker layer began to show up. This wasn't just a random act of violence or a family feud gone horribly wrong. According to law enforcement, while he ran a family business by day, behind the scenes, Johnny Kuraga was involved in a much riskier operation, smuggling and selling cocaine, reportedly bringing back kilos from California every few months to distribute in Kitsap County. And that secret may have cost his entire family their lives. Detectives working alongside FBI special agents eventually landed on a chilling theory. This was no isolated crime. It was a hit carried out by members and associates of the Bandidos motorcycle club. For those unfamiliar, the Bandidos aren't your run-of-the-mill biker gang. They're an international outlaw motorcycle club, known to federal agencies as a criminal organization. In their world, loyalty is everything, and betrayal, real or perceived, can be fatal. Turns out some of the people buying cocaine from Johnny were patched members of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club's Bremerton chapter. Now stay with us as we tell you what exactly goes on behind the club's apparent love for their motorcycles. The Bandidos Motorcycle Club is known worldwide, but especially by law enforcement agencies, as more than just a group of motorcycle enthusiasts. Officially, they say they're just a club of riders who share a brotherhood and passion for bikes. But authorities in many countries see things differently. To them, the Bandidos are classified as an outlaw motorcycle gang, meaning they're linked to serious criminal activities. While the Bandidos themselves deny being a criminal organization, the reality tells another story. Members of the club have been convicted of a wide range of crimes, including theft, extortion, forcing money or favors through threats, prostitution rings, drug trafficking, and even murder. The list of criminal acts connected to them is long and chilling. Racketeering and basically running illegal business operations, drug and arms trafficking, assault, money laundering, loan sharking, contract killing, trafficking in stolen goods, motor vehicle theft, and counterfeiting. Basically, if anything makes headlines for organized crime, you may easily suspect this gang's involvement. And you might be right, the majority of the time. In Washington state alone, the Bandidos have 14 chapters, and they're known to be deeply involved in methamphetamine distribution and violent crime. Back in 1985, the authorities carried out a huge crackdown on the Bandidos in Washington, arresting 13 members on drugs and weapons charges in places like Bellingham, Everett, and Puyallup. This wasn't a simple police raid. It was the result of a 16-month investigation involving the FBI, DEA, and ATF, showing just how serious law enforcement was about stopping their criminal activities. The club's violent side is clear from incidents like one in the year 2000, when a deadly shootout broke out between the Bandidos and a rival gang called the Iron Horsemen at a motorcycle rally. One Bandidos member was killed, another wounded, and the rival gang's member was critically injured. This fight wasn't just about turf. It was fueled by a drug dispute, highlighting how the gang's conflicts often turn deadly. In 2005, the Bandidos' criminal activities were brought into even deeper scrutiny when 32 members and associates from Washington and Montana were indicted on serious charges like conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, violent crimes related to organized crime, drug offenses, and weapons violations. In raids that followed, law enforcement seized drugs, weapons, stolen motorcycles, and a huge amount of cash. Many members pleaded guilty, including high-ranking leaders like the international president and chapter presidents. Despite the convictions, some sentences were surprisingly light, and some members were even allowed to continue associating with the club under strict court supervision. Fast forward to recent years, and the Bandidos' shadow looms over one of the most shocking cases in Washington, which is the quadruple murder of the Kuraga family. So as we discuss this case, it's important to note that while the Bandidos may ride motorcycles and talk about brotherhood, law enforcement agencies see them as a dangerous criminal network deeply involved in drugs, violence, and murder. Their story is one of power, crime, and the deadly consequences when outlaw culture crosses the line. Now let's get back to Johnny's association with the club. One of Johnny's close friends, someone he trusted, had been helping sell the cocaine on Johnny's behalf. That same friend started doing business with a man named Robert Bobby Watson III, a high-ranking Bandidos member. It's unclear whether Watson was buying for himself or flipping the product for profit, but when that friend backed out and cut ties, it forced Johnny and Watson into direct communication, and that's when things took a turn. After the fallout, Johnny made one of his regular runs to California, but this time, Bobby Watson followed him. The two men reportedly had a heated argument. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and lines were likely crossed. Whatever was said, whatever happened during that confrontation, it lit the fuse. And just weeks later, Johnny's entire family would be dead. But the real question is this: was Johnny the only target, or was this assassination done to prove a point to others as well? If Johnny Kuraga had a gun on his back, the man allegedly holding the trigger was Robert James Watson, a name whispered with fear, even in circles used to violence. Known as Bobby to his inner circle, Watson wasn't just some rogue biker with a temper. He was the vice president of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club's Bellingham chapter, and according to law enforcement, the suspected mastermind behind the Kuraga family massacre. But what made things even more chilling was the way Bobby behaved after the murders. When fellow Bandidos members asked him if he'd been involved, Bobby gave mixed answers, dodging, deflecting, and offering conflicting versions of the truth. It was as if he couldn't keep the story straight, or didn't care enough about it. Despite Bobby's high rank, not everyone in the Bandidos stood behind what happened. The chapter's president openly condemned the killings, especially the brutal deaths of women and children. He even cooperated with the investigation, drawing a line between loyalty to the club and pure savagery. In the biker world, codes of conduct are murky, but killing an entire family, that crossed every boundary, even among criminals. And then there was Johnny James Watson, Bobby's younger brother. A resident of Bremerton, Johnny Watson wasn't affiliated with the Bandidos, and as far as records show, he had no direct ties to the club's criminal activity. But blood runs deep, and being Bobby Watson's brother automatically placed him under suspicion. What did he know? What did he hear? And most of all, what role, if any, did he play? But perhaps the most tragic twist of all comes in the form of Danny J. Kelly Jr. Kelly wasn't a full-fledged member of the Bandidos, but he was close, too close. As a hang-around, he was considered a prospect in waiting, someone looking to earn his patch, and his ticket into the inner circle was none other than Bobby Watson. Kelly was frequently spotted wearing Bandidos supporter gear and made no secret of his ambitions. But that's not what made his involvement so gut-wrenching. Years earlier, Danny Kelly had been one of Johnny Kuraga's closest friends. So close, in fact, that Johnny chose him to stand beside him as best man on his wedding day. It was a bond that should have lasted a lifetime. But something went sour. Their friendship broke after Johnny accused Danny of stealing from him, an accusation that seemed to sever whatever trust was left between them. What happened in the time between friendship and betrayal? What turned a best man into a suspected killer? And more importantly, how many of these relationships were rotting from the inside, long before bullets and fire destroyed the Kuraga home? This wasn't just a story of crime. It was a story of bonds built on lies, brotherhoods poisoned by greed, and loyalty wrapped in bullets. After years of relentless pursuit, the pieces of the Kuraga family puzzle finally clicked into place, prompting law enforcement to form a dedicated task force solely focused on unraveling the truth behind the brutal quadruple homicide. This wasn't just another cold case file gathering dust. It became a high-stakes mission fueled by the urgency to hold those responsible accountable for the devastation they left behind. The net tightened, and one by one, the three men believed to have orchestrated and executed the attack, Danny Kelly Jr., Robert Bobby Watson III, and Johnny Watson, were finally taken into custody. Their names, once whispered rumors in dark corners, now echoed loudly through the halls of the Kitsap County Jail. But even in arrest, they held their ground, pleading not guilty to a staggering list of felony charges that included aggravated murder, arson, and burglary. The weight of 16 felony counts hung over each of them like a sword hung by a thread. A judge, recognizing the gravity of their alleged crimes and the risk they posed, ordered that none of the three be granted bail. They were stripped of any right to possess firearms, alcohol, or drugs, unless medically necessary, and in a move to prevent collusion, the court forbade any contact between the men. It was clear the system was determined to keep them separated, isolated, and under strict watch until justice could run its course. Then came the verdict that would finally close the darkest chapter in Kitsap County's recent history. In April of 2024, after months of intense trial proceedings, the court found Kelly, Bobby Watson, and Johnny Watson guilty on 30 counts, ranging from first-degree and premeditated murder to arson and other serious charges. The chilling nature of the crimes, the cold-blooded killing, and the deliberate destruction of the family home left no room for mercy. On May 7, 2024, the sentence was handed down. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. No hope of freedom. No second chances. The Kuraga killers would spend the rest of their lives behind bars, held to account for shattering a family and ripping a community apart. For the investigators who had chased leads, endured dead ends, and pieced together every clue, it was a hard-earned victory, a grim reminder of the cost of violence, but a promise that justice, however delayed, would prevail. As the courtroom prepared for sentencing, the atmosphere was heavy with grief and emotion as loved ones of the victims stepped forward to share their memories and pain. Hunter Shop's mother, Carly Shop, brought a powerful and heartbreaking presence to the room when she placed an urn holding her son's ashes on a table next to a photo of him right by the lectern where family members spoke. 8 relatives carrying the weight of their loss spoke directly to the court, not only sharing fond memories of their loved ones, but also urging the judge to deliver the harshest penalties possible to the men found guilty. They also thanked the jury who, after a grueling trial lasting more than 5 months, found Kelly and the Watson brothers guilty. Carly and other family members spoke openly about the deep pain and suffering that has plagued their blended family ever since that tragic night in January 2017.
It was satisfying to be able to look at them in the eye and in their face and see these monsters. Finally, you can sense the evil just by looking at them and being in the same room as them.
Several relatives described how these feelings created an atmosphere that was impossible to escape. To make matters worse, in 2018, they suffered another blow when Joseph Kuraga, a young family member, died in a car crash near Hansville. This additional loss only deepened the sorrow and pain already weighing heavily on their hearts. The tragic story of the Kuraga family is a haunting reminder of how deep pain can ripple far beyond the immediate loss, touching the lives of loved ones and entire communities. What began as a quiet life ended in unimaginable violence, fueled by a dark underworld most would rather not see. Even as justice was served with life sentences, the shadows left behind linger. And as the dust settles, it leaves you wondering how many more lives are quietly caught in the crossfire of secrets and violence we'll never fully understand. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've made it this far, be sure to check out this next video. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you once again for watching.